Started. It sounds like we're probably not going to be live streaming this, but I'll send an email out. We're going to try to record it, and we'll make sure that we get an announcement out so people can view it after the fact at least. So welcome to the Librarians Assembly business meeting for, what is it, May? Is that right? May. Okay, we're going to get started here. First of all, announcements. The big announcement is turnover in Librarians Assembly Steering Committee. As I've mentioned in a number of emails at this point, there are 5 folks departing from Librarians Assembly Steering. So Kara Calvarese, Amy Lassell, Ann Glorioso, Pamela O'Donnell, and Heather Shimon are all leaving the steering committee. They're rotating off, or in the case of Kara, going to the sunnier climates of University of Miami, Ohio, in Ohio. And so we put a call out. We wanted to make sure that we got enough people to come in and volunteer for those spots, and we got excellent volunteers. The only downside is we only got 4, but the 4 people we got are really good. Joining us will be Kelly Hughes from College Library, Ellen Jacks from Memorial Library, Jessica Newman from Steamrock Library, and Brooke Schenk from College Library. And I'd like to think that those 4 people are enough to satisfy our 5 to 7 person requirement, because with them and Beth Harper staying on and myself, I'd like to say that our combined talents could equal maybe an extra person, but that doesn't work that way in our bylaws. We actually have to have 5 or 7 people, and with the new volunteers, we only have 6. So we do need to get 1 more person on board, because we don't want to cut any of these people. We don't want to cut ourselves either. So please volunteer. We've decided to sweeten the deal a little bit and to get us back on track, so we're not trying to recruit 5 on, 2 off on every other year. The next volunteer can only serve for a year if they'd like, and that way we'll kind of get ourselves back on track. So please spread the word. If you're academic staff, you're eligible to apply for this. We really need the people. It would be great. It's a great way to get to know shared governance on campus as well. So please get the word out on this. And with that, that's the end of the announcements, unless anyone has anything else they'd like to share. Yes, Beth?
Well, I would just like us to give a round of applause to the people stepping off of the committee for all the work that they've done.
And I think there's a small round of applause for the people coming on, but I kind of cut it off. So round of applause for the people coming on as well. So with that, we are going to switch over to University Library Committee update, and Ellen Jacks is going to be delivering that report.
Sure. Either hold my mic or my computer. I have assistance, thank you. So yes, I'm Ellen Jacks, finishing my first year in ULC and going into my second year. And we've had 2 meetings since our last business meeting here. So we had a meeting in March and in April, and that's going to be the end of the ULC meetings until the next academic year. So just quick note, Michael Cohen is just finished his 2-year rotation on ULC, so I wanted to thank Michael for all his help and support. And then I don't believe I see her in the room right now, but Cameron Cook is coming on for this upcoming academic year to serve the 2-year rotation for ULC. So I just wanted to thank Cameron and thank everybody else who put their names in. It was really nice to see so much willingness to participate. So we're very grateful for that. Sorry, I have to hold the computer for all of that. That's not on my notes. So in March, we met at the Law Library, and we got a really nice quick update on some cool things happening in the Law Library from Monty Shua, also a ULC member. Just quick things of note that you all might find interesting. There's a fantastic digital repository on faculty scholarship related to law that's publicly available. It's very unique in terms of volume and text materials, committed to open access in the Wisconsin idea. And so there's a lot of really great resources there, including faculty scholarship, historical materials, some oral histories that they've partnered with Troy Reeves and the Oral History Program on to get on up. And part of this was to highlight the 100 50th anniversary of the law school and the 125th anniversary of the law library. So that's a really nice, outstanding achievement. These minutes should be posted very soon on the library's website, and so links to this repository are available in there, and I can also send them out. So this is kind of a couple highlights from the law library. Then we launched into a brief updates on library consolidation that Michael Cohen provided. I think all these are things that you have all hopefully have heard about with the consolidation with math, physics, and astronomy. All these things kind of very similar to what just came out in a recent email in the consolidation report, so I'm not going to rehash that here, but everybody was excited to kind of hear about that with ULC, because not everybody in ULC is getting all the updates that we are at the same time. And then we ended the March meeting with a conversation on Elsevier. So this was our first ULC meeting since University of California basically stopped working with Elsevier and stopped their subscriptions. So Lisa Carter was nice enough to kind of give a background on what she knows. She got an update from different directors at various conferences and through other communications. So UC has been very upfront about with other library directors about what they did, which was really helpful. So they had a nice system in place of working with faculty for about 5 years to talk about affording scholarly resource materials and what to do about it, which eventually led to cutting ties with Elsevier. That's a very, very quick summary, but the point is that they had ongoing conversations with faculty and a lot of things in place and a lot of support for doing this. And so we discussed possible ideas of how can we get our conversations going with faculty. And also highlighted was the webpage about major press releases and main points combined by Carrie Nelson, and that's in the scholarly communications page on our website, also linked to in these minutes. And that was mostly it for March. Some new business are just kind of talking about questions on updates for area studies positions within the libraries, which we addressed then in April. So the April meeting was held at the Health Sciences Learning Center. So we had a nice introduction from Chris Hooper-Lane, kind of gave an overview of eBling and different things that they went through to revamp the library. If you haven't been there in the last few years, they've done some really nice things. And they talked about kind of their heavy public services event that they have. They target main schools and education-related sides of schools for health sciences regulated fields. They also do a lot of literature reviews for faculty and other researchers in health sciences. About 400 literature reviews in the last year or so. So they do a lot of intensive work for their patrons. We also had a brief update from the Memorial Library Committee Chair, Dan Kapust. Their Memorial Library Committee is just kind of just getting back up and running after a little bit of hiatus. So look for that website to be updated soon. I'm just confirming membership before I update it. So MLC, the Memorial Library Committee, and ULC are both going to be reviewing charges and kind of reviewing connections to each other going forward. But there is always a ULC liaison on MLC. And then we ended with a really nice updates, kind of presentation and conversation on scholarly communications from Carrie Nelson, talking about, well, what is scholarly communications and definitions and overview, going back to 2003 ACR statement and what we have on our current website. So basically very mission-driven, trying to connect researchers to the resources and promote widely accessible material. She talked about different existing support that we have under copyright, publishing, repositories, research IDs, how to address impact, and how can we look at different ways of accessing collections and using collections. Some future implications and tasks of scholarly communications are going to reduce some strategic planning, kind of ended their 3-year idea of getting scholarly communications up and running more. And doing some peer benchmarking. And there are some slides that kind of have some peer benchmarking examples that will be part of these minutes. Unfortunately, I can't post them until they're approved in September. But I can talk to Carrie if she wants them sent out widely to libraries ahead of time. And then we talked a little bit about how ULC can help and really talked about transformative agreements. So Subscription fees and open, I can take this from here. Thank you very much. Subscription fees and open access models right now are kind of all going to the publishers. So how can we start working with faculty and get this conversation going about different agreements for publishing, different agreements for our subscription costs with vendors going forward? That is my update. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. Next on our agenda is academic staff assembly update, but before we get to that, I realized that in my announcements, I didn't do some of our usual things. Oh, what's up, Amy?
Very loud.
Oh, too loud? Okay.
Super loud.
Okay, I'll keep the mic away from my face. Okay, so we usually do shout-outs as part of our announcements, and I don't know if we have any shout-outs that were submitted, but if we don't, I'd like to give a shout-out right now to LTG for picking up those super lightweight Dell laptops, because I was able to carry and the other thing I forgot to do was, are there any folks who are new to Librarians Assembly? I'm holding my mic close again. If there are any folks who are new to Librarians Assembly, if you wouldn't mind standing up and introducing yourself. Here, let me bring the mic back.
So I'm Teresa Bain. This is my third day here. I'm working with Taryn Resnick in the Electronic Resources Management Department. So, nice to meet you.
Thanks, Teresa. Anyone else? Okay. So with that, we will move on to our academic staff assembly update with Tom Durkin and Tan Mayashiba.
Thank you. So I'm Tom, and I'm in the Academic Staff Assembly, District 525.
I'm Tam, and I'm representing Academic Staff Assembly District 465.
All right, so I'll be presenting some notes from April, and Tam, I think you're doing May. Yeah, okay, so just to make sure everyone's on the same page, the Academic Staff Assembly is open to all academic staff. The meetings are held on the second Monday of each month, September through May, at 3:30 to 5 p.m. in Bascom Hall, room 272. The next meeting is going to be held on September 9th. And I'm just going to put this down for a second so I can turn the page. So I'm not going to go through and present everything that was discussed at the last academic staff, at the April Academic Staff Assembly meeting. I'm just going to touch on a few high points. One really important thing that the Academic Staff Assembly coordinates with the Chancellor every year are the Academic Staff Excellence Awards. And the winners for this year were Kim Plummer, Abby Thompson, Michael Westfall, Paul McGuire, Susan Nassau, Karen Middlestad, Rick Strickland, Jeff Stevens, and Bruno Browning. I don't think none of those people are from the libraries, but I think it's great that we acknowledge that there are academic staff on campus that are being awarded and recognized for all of the hard work that everyone does. And I think some of us have actually worked with Bruno. So I don't know if you guys want to just give a hand to all the academic staff who won awards this year, even though no library staff, all right? The next thing that was discussed, ASEC is like the executive committee that coordinates much of the activity for the Academic Staff Assembly. There were new elections that were held this spring, and so new representatives, Jenny Dahlberg, Stephanie Elkins, and Bill Tischler were elected 3-year terms in ASEC. Probably the most important thing that was discussed at the April meeting, there was a presentation by the Ombuds Office. They were presenting their annual report. So the Ombuds Office is made up of 5 retired UW faculty and staff with nearly 150 years of collective experience on the UW-Madison campus. The Ombuds Office is a safe office for all UW-Madison employees, including graduate students that are employed on campus. They listen, explore concerns, and offer resources, options, and strategies to address workplace issues. The standards of practice for ombuds include confidentiality, impartiality. They advocate for a fair process. Informality. It's not an office to file a formal complaint. And then independents, they don't actually report to anyone. So the Ombuds office is, our Ombuds office is actually looked at as a model across the United States for how to run like a really good Ombuds office. And part of that is because we do use people who are retired, so they have a lot of experience on campus, and then also the ombuds on our campus are kept very separate from the rest of the political process, so they can operate sort of independently. In the 2018 calendar year, they served 270 visitors, and academic staff made up the largest percentage, about 55%, but they did talk to a lot of graduate students. And I'm going to just turn the page here. The other really significant thing that was discussed at the April meeting, the provost gave a report. So I don't know if everyone knows, we actually have a new provost. So that is Carl Schultz is our new provost, and the old provost, Mangelsdorf, she's moving on. I forget the exact university that she's moving on to, but I think the May meeting was actually her last meeting, but she wanted to make sure that everyone knew that really from the first day she got here up to the present, they've been working on reaccreditation. And so we're moving into a reaccreditation cycle. And she wanted everyone to know that the visit, like the site visit for your reaccreditation, was held this spring. And she said it went very well. She said the exit comments from the reviewers were all very positive. So that's actually really important. I mean, it's sort of unimaginable that we wouldn't get reaccredited, but it's great that all the comments were very positive. All right, so that's it for April. Sure.
And I wanted to add that the provost will be becoming the new president of the University of Rochester.
There you go.
Okay. If you would like to fill out the academic staff work-life survey, you have until June 6th, and you should have received an individual email link around April 25th or May 3rd. And a similar faculty work-life survey is also being conducted, and I think that they will compare the results of both. So for the May meeting, here are some abbreviated notes. There is a memorial resolution for Susan French Branscheid, a department administrator and graduate student coordinator in the School of Journalism and Mass Communication, in case anyone knew her. Academic Staff Assembly Committee election results were presented and are on the website at acstaff.wisc.edu. The Academic Staff Professionals Representation Organization, or ASPRO, lobbyist Kathleen Kilgore reported that the Joint Finance Committee is starting to vote on sections of the state budget. Technical colleges are on the agenda soon. The UW system budget is usually taken up late in the process, and the capital budget will probably be addressed last. The UW system has been seeking a 3% increase pay plan, and yesterday ASPRO reported that the committee had approved Governor Evers' 2% increased pay plan. I'm sure we'll hear more about that later. Also, ASEC is offering a free membership to ASPRO for anyone who can recruit another ASPRO member. And if you're interested in that, contact Jenny Dahlberg for details. The Title and Total Compensation, or TTC project, gave an update. The PowerPoint is available on the academic staff website. I'd just like to step through the timeline. Over the summer, apparently, standard job descriptions will be peer-reviewed and QA'd. In July, there will be some additional informational forums. Starting October 1st, managers will receive training on how to talk to employees about the standard job descriptions. On December 1st, the standard job descriptions will be released and posted publicly. And then December through mid-February, managers will talk to employees about standard job descriptions to receive feedback. And then March 1st, the new title system is scheduled to be implemented. There was some concern in the meeting about there not being enough titles in the series, and also the timeline being very short. If you have any questions and concerns, they can be directed to the TTC project at go.wisc.edu/TTC project. Let's see. The Assembly passed Resolution 711 to recommend continuation of the Division of Continuing Studies DCS course grants past its 3-year pilot period, which just expired. And then Provost Mangelsdorf reported that the Professor of Practice title series has been put to committee by the Faculty Senate, and also that the extent of UW shared governance is both remarkable and uncommon. And And again, that was the provost's last assembly meeting.
Thank you, Tim and Tom. Next up is Heather Shipman to give the CASI report and the professional concerns report.
Okay, so hello, I'm Heather Shipman. I'm a librarian at Steenbach Library. We start with professional concerns. So we've been doing monthly reports.
It's just horses.
I think it's because I'm close to a speaker. Hey, microphones do not like me. Okay. That wasn't happening to other people. Okay. So. Oh, maybe it's my necklace? Here. Yeah. Take off my necklace. Okay. So professional concerns has been sending out monthly reports of trends from our listening sessions, our Ad 15 listening sessions, and we have those after library assembly events. And since last month we only had the high tea, we didn't have any of the Ad 15 listening sessions, so there is no monthly report for April, but we will have, next month we'll send one out for June, which means that we will have an Ad 15 listening session after this business meeting. We're calling it Ad 15, you can spend 15 minutes there, but we're going to have the room for an hour since it's going to be the last one really of the academic year, so we'll be in room 362 downstairs after this meeting if people want to come and continue the conversation from the business meeting or have other concerns they'd like to bring to the committee that we can put in our monthly reports. Okay, for CASI, I went to the CASI brown bag lunch. So got to meet CASI reps from the other CASIs around campus, and CASI is the Committee on Academic Staff Issues, for those of you who aren't familiar with that acronym. So SNPH was there, Letters in Science, Law, Engineering, Pharmacy. And then we had a conversation just of like, what are the priorities, what are the concerns of the other CASIs? And TTC came up a lot, so I'm very happy that Anne is here today to talk about that. And also the benefit survey. So like, when are we gonna hear about the benefit survey? So I don't know, is that something, Anne, that you were gonna talk about? So they're saying that October through December is when that group will be developing recommendations. So an ASEC is watching that. But there's work happening on that. Let's see. Another big issue that came up was another issue on our agenda. I talked about how we were considering trying to incorporate university staff into the CASI, and if we would change the name of our CASI. Other CASIs just call themselves CASIs. They don't call themselves another name, but because Libraries Assembly predates the whole CASI system, we have a name for ours. And all the other groups, just bringing up this topic to the other groups, everyone was very, very interested. And a lot of other CASIs are already doing this. So Letters in Science is doing it. SNPH is already doing it. So some of them, they just have university staff in their CASI. Others have a separate USIC, so University Staff Issues Committee, where they kind of just work together. So there's different models that are happening, but engineering was talking about how to get university staff into their CASI, and so was pharmacy and law. So it does seem like something where other CASIs are interested in this. And remember, other CASIs are usually in a position where the majority of staff are faculty. So the CASIs are coming together, and then they want to bring the even smaller group of university staff in with them. So we have kind of a different structure, but it seems to be that being inclusive, working together, is something that is a great trend that's happening across the other CASIs. The other thing, SNPH, with their CASI, they just had the Office of Strategic Consulting come and just help them set priorities for their CASI. And Sarah Daniels, who is our academic staff secretary, gave them all money to do that. And so they set some priorities, and they're also working on having an infrastructure to include their CASI into policy creation. So instead of the CASI sort of being a group that asks for things or gives recommendations, or actually a partner in that process to bring administration and staff together and align those goals in policy creation. So that's something I thought that was really interesting that SNPH is doing. So that covers that. Just out of curiosity, did anyone else go to the MASN lunch? Gail, I see you in the back. Yeah. So that was a great. Nobody else. So that's a nice event that the Madison Academic Staff Network holds. You can become a member, and they have events all through the year, but they also have end of the year lunch. And Beverly Hutchinson from SNPH was there and gave a really amazing talk about diversity work, and basically diversity work as change management work, which I thought was really interesting, and about the humility needed in doing that work, and also an asset mindset. So an asset mindset instead of a deficit mindset in going into that work. So I thought that was a really great talk. So watch for those MASN emails about events for that. So, any questions about anything I brought up? Yeah.
What is S?
SNPH, I keep
Yeah,
saying.
yes.
So it's School of Medicine and Public Health.
Oh.
Sorry, I didn't clarify that. Anything else? Great, thanks.
Thank you, Heather. Next up is Pamela O'Donnell with our Treasury update.
Thanks, Dave. I have no idea how close or far to hold this. So.
Got it.
Okay.
Better than I
How do you make Google Slides?
Upper right.
Present. Could it be bigger? Okay. So we started our balance with these numbers: savings $100, checking $1533.24. I am such a good treasurer. Nobody submits anything for payment. So if you have receipts out there from events like this or eTalk Run, please return them in. I'd like to write a check or two before I leave this role. The high tea was so successful, and I really want to give a shout out to the programming committee. We ended up with $400 just from high tea attendance. It was just $5 piece. We had 80 people, and then some people actually are still paying, so that amount will go up. Memberships came to 1,055. So we have a grand total at the moment of $2967.16 in our checking account. I won't leave on such a high number because there are anticipated expenditures. There's hall rental, the catering bill, and Amy's Costco cakes. So look for an expected balance of expenses being $917.50, and then I'm hoping to leave with a balance of over $2,000 in our checking account for us to work with next year. The new steering committee will, I'm hoping, feel very comfortable with a good balance. So that's the treasurer's report. Are there any questions? Excellent.
Thank you, Pamela. We're going to throw a party, right? With all that? That's what's happening? Okay. Yeah, I suppose we just did. We can throw another party. Next up is, speaking of that party, next up is programming update from Amy Lessell and Beth Harper, or one selected person.
I'll do it. Wherever Amy is, she can chime in.
That's sort of your last shot.
That's true. That's true. Amy, this is your last chance. Do you want to give a report?
Well, I have to admit, our committee, which is Amy, me, and Majan, we haven't met since the tea. I feel still a little hungover from the tea. So But thanks everyone for coming. 80 people, that's a great turnout, and for nominating your colleagues for awards, because that makes the tea. I mean, that's the big thing. You saw how much we spent on it. We may pull off a library lunch this summer. We're not sure. So that's, I think, Mai or Amy, do you have anything to add?
Possible, I don't know if we might have something in the works about a conference program.
Right.
So watch your emails.
Yeah, watch your emails, and we may work with Professional Concerns to put on an event where you can share what you've learned at conferences. That's all we got.
Thanks, Beth. Next up is Anne Murphy Long with a title and total compensation update.
All right, thank you for inviting me today. Please be kind. I don't have a ton of information, but I will let you know what I have. What I'm going to talk about a little of the process as a whole, and then kind of what the library's perspective is on it at the moment. So, as I said before, we're kind of in the middle of this project. Campus is finishing the standard job descriptions right now. Probably by the end of May, all the job descriptions will be kind of not in place, but into quality assurance. So basically it's going to, from our hands to campus title and comp project people, and they'll be looking at it, making minor adjustments to get them kind of in context, make sure they're all kind of coming from the same voice, those kind of pieces, and moving forward with that. I will say that each job has been reviewed by campus members and members from systems. So there were teams that were set up for every job family that actually reviewed all the jobs in that family. Basically took a whole day and just went through all of them, made sure they read nicely together, that you could see what the process was and what the difference were between the positions. If you hadn't heard before, libraries kind of took their own path. We had seen the original job descriptions that were put out back in the fall, weren't really happy with what was out there, so we kind of decided to write our own. And so Nancy and I have been working on this project for several months, writing them, along with members of the job family team that were put together a year and a half ago now. And so we really went through each job step by step, created new job standards for us. We did have some feedback sessions in March and April with different people around GLS and the libraries as a whole. We had Law Library there, Merit, Evelyn were all taking part in this. And we basically finished up ours with our feedback sessions, went through about 10 or 11 versions of each of these by the end of it. But I'm really excited to say we have a strong product. Our titles look great. We met with Green Bay. Nancy and I met with Green Bay last week to talk about the system perspective on our job description that we put forward, and we just really had some minor adjustments, wording here and there, a couple little wordsmithing, but we're very happy with the products that came out of that. Next steps, kind of was mentioned already, but I'll reiterate some. Like I said, the job standards will be finished in May. Campus is starting to look at them this summer and starting to map people preliminarily to job titles and job descriptions. They are also looking at all the job descriptions and mapping them to market and making sure our titles map easily to market and our job descriptions map easily to market, so that when they start building pay ranges, we will be on par with pretty much everybody else, both academic institutions and not. Then I wanted to bring this up because there was some discussion about standard job descriptions being released earlier to people to look at prior to the mapping of people to job descriptions. Turns out that is not going to be the case. So we will see forums in July. They will talk about the updates on the job descriptions, and they'll talk about next steps there. But they aren't actually releasing the job descriptions until December, the standard job descriptions until December. They will have training for employees and managers all fall to talk about how this process is going to work, how after the preliminary mapping we can go back and start looking at each person in more detail. That is a process that's going to take 6 months, 8 months, but we will get there. But you will see them you will not see the standard job descriptions probably until December. And once those are done, we'll be working. Campus HR will be working with us. We'll be working with employers. Other employers will be working with supervisors. We'll be working with all employees to make sure that everybody is mapped to the best of our ability. And this will go live March 1. So, does anyone have any questions or concerns for me? Yes.
I have a question, I'm not concerned. So, because the libraries took their own path and did work on our own titles and descriptions, I'm wondering about how useful the larger campus forums will be to all of us to understand. I mean, they'll give us a little context probably, but is in-house going to be a better source of information for us, rather like how much connection is our process really going to have to the larger process?
So I would say the forums that are going to be in July are really going to talk about overall general things about the process. They're going to talk about the timeline. They're going to talk about what really happens when we start mapping, which might be useful to people to just kind of hear what their plans and then their processes for that. I can't answer exactly how they're doing that on their end. So I would say it's probably worth your time to at least try to get to one if you can, or at least watch one online.
Also, thank you for your work.
You're very welcome. Yes.
So I've been told in LTG that we're classified under IT.
Yes.
What do you know about that? What kind of?
I do know that DoIT and other IT employees, I guess you'd say, across campus have had multiple conversations. They were kind of in the same boat as we were. They were concerned about some of the titling and how the job descriptions were looking. So I do know that they are working hard. They're kind of doing not exactly a similar process to us, but they are kind of doing outside what the general campus was doing. So I know that they are working hard, and they're running into situations where like they're building titles, and next week they have to build a whole new different type of title because their jobs change that quickly. So I can't give you much more than that, except that I know they are working hard on theirs. They have their own process, just like we had.
Should we be reaching out to someone over there just so we do stay in, like as far as just the timing?
Well, the timing will be about the same as what we have. Like everything has to be in by the end of this month. I can find out if there's a resource person over there for you that might be able to answer some questions and concerns from that end. I don't know off the top of my head. Michael.
You referenced the standard position descriptions being finished by December, but at what point do we have to rewrite individual staff members' position descriptions and be in sync with all this?
That is a very good question, and I will get back to you on that one. I do know that at some point we really will be looking at all our current job descriptions. Probably isn't the worst thing in the world to start taking a look at them now with supervisors. Not that we can do much with it right now, but there are some positions out there that haven't been updated since 2011, 2012. So jobs change. So let's make sure we're getting them up to date. But I can't tell you our timeline in GLS yet on when we're going to have those meetings and those discussions about jobs, about personal job descriptions or your own job description. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Next up, the proposed bylaws amendment. Kind Heather already kind of covered this in terms of what it means as far as us being a CASI and incorporating university staff into our makeup. I don't have that much to add. The only thing that I can really build upon is to say that we do have a survey in the works. The steering committee is developing a survey to send out to all staff to kind of get feedback, to get an idea, in particular, where university staff stands on this idea, since they do have their own form of shared governance, and we don't want to infringe on that. We want to make sure that everyone's getting represented the way they need to be represented. So we are being very thoughtful about how we design this survey, and we want to make sure that we get the right kind of feedback to move forward or to not move forward, depending on what people say. The next agenda item is, it's going to be more of a feedback request, but we need kind of a little background to get some of that feedback. And this is on the service delivery model that was presented at the Public Service Interchange Forum on April 29th. Leslie Moyo provided an update on that model and requested feedback at the time directly from attendees. However, since that time, the steering committee and professional concerns committees have gotten a lot of informal feedback. The thing is, we can't do anything with this informal feedback, so we wanted to create a way to, create like a feedback loop where we could have some formalized feedback submitted, and this is going to be done through professional concerns. But I realize that I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit because I should probably explain what this is about. So I'm going to dive in a little bit. This is going to be kind of an overview of the documents that went into this and kind of the process. And this is with some feedback that was provided by Leslie herself too, to kind of guide us through to some extent. As I mentioned, this isn't going to be a Q&A really, just a prompt for feedback. So we're encouraging folks to either provide that feedback to Leslie or to professional concerns via the @15, or to email professional concerns at la-profcon, PROFCON, @library.vis.edu. You can also find that email address on the Librarians Assembly website, on the staff website. And at the time that professional concerns has this feedback, they're going to curate it and communicate it through the professional concerns monthly report to staff and exec. So here is some background. I have linked the service delivery model wiki page and the structure of SDM presentation that Leslie delivered at the April Public Services Interchange Forum. So I'm going to be going through those documents and just kind of giving a brief overview based on what they have in them. So first I'm going to go over to the wiki that dates back to 2016. And at the top, this gives kind of an explanation of what a service delivery framework, or in this case, kind of a service delivery model is. This definition taken from Wikipedia. Service delivery framework is a set of principles, standards, policies, and constraints used to guide the design, development, deployment, operation, and retirement of services delivered by a service provider with a view to offering a consistent service experience to a specific user community in a specific business context. An SDF is the context in which a service provider's capabilities are arranged into services. And this is kind of the presumed sort of intent behind this whole process. So this started in 2016. There were initially forums held in June and September, and what happened after that is, we can go down here actually to these steps. So first of all, the service philosophy was developed, and that was step 1. What happened next were kind of step 2 and 3 combined, which manifested in these clusters that were created. And this is the point where I should emphasize that despite the fact that this was presented in a public services forum, and that it sounds like there's public service stuff all over this, if you look at the makeup of these clusters, and you can do that on the wiki, to the membership list up here, and you take a look at it, it's not all public service folks. There are parts of the libraries from all over the place represented on these. So this should be of interest, I think, throughout. And one of our goals here is also to kind of make that available to everyone, since it was at a public service interchange, and not everyone necessarily attends those if they're not public service facing staff. So we wanted to make sure that those members kind of knew what was going on as well. So as I mentioned, it was a 4-phase development, and those clusters kind of came up with these large documents that you can also view on the wiki. I go back up. These are all available here, the final reports that each cluster came up with, and you can click on them, check them out in your own time. And one of the things that Leslie requested we get some feedback on, and one of the things that we think would be valuable as well, is to see whether what came out of this process reflects what was actually in these reports. So take a good look at these reports, especially if you were on the clusters, and kind of look at what eventually came out of them. So now I'm going to switch over to the structure of SDM document that Leslie presented at the Public Services Interchange, and that is right here. And I'm going to just kind of highlight some of the main slides that I think would be important to kind of take a look at if you're sort of evaluating this. Now, this is part of that phase 4 on the document, but Leslie is considering it a sub-process of that phase. So the feedback loop established here, I think, is going to be important in terms of going forward with it. So some of the slides I think we should really take a look at. Slide 3, where we do have 4 cluster reports manifested, although in this case they've been grouped also, if you click on this presented as link, into kind of a set of descriptors with principles assigned and some questions that guide the various service clusters. So if you take a look at these, it's kind of put into a chart form. So you might want to take a look at this, see if it reflects what the cluster reports actually say as well. What I would also recommend taking a look at is slide 4. These are the other documents that are intended to kind of inform this process, this evaluative process we go through. So if you go down one more, here is kind of the evaluative process suggested. So there are a series of overarching principles, a strategic framework, and the service philosophy on one side, and then there's kind of the main model where there are a series of tools that Leslie has come up with that I'll show you on another slide that kind of are also to be used in this evaluative process. So if we go back up, you can look at the overarching principles, strategic framework, and service philosophy here. They're all hyperlinked. So if you click on those, you can get to those documents as needed. And then the tools guiding the alignment down here are further down on this slide here. And if you go to these, each instrument is sort of a series of questions that you can answer in terms of designing services. And then down here, there are another kind of set of similar instruments where you actually take the overarching principle, service philosophy, and strategic framework and use implementation tools in kind of a similar fashion to kind of make this kind of a holistic sort of evaluative process. So at this point, I'm going to kind of list some of the things that you can do to kind of continue with this process. These are things that Leslie suggested. Since this is based on a process a process that was designed by Neil Turner, which is a service delivery canvas. It's kind of listed up here if you want to take a look at it. Here is kind of the adapted form of it. This is actually based, his canvas is based on a business model canvas, so there's kind of several degrees of like adaptation going on here, but you can kind of see how these things work from this slide. So take a look at that delivery canvas, fill it out for your existing service or one that you envision for the future, and apply the model tools and share your feedback. Reread the cluster reports and determine whether the information is accurate, and if any information has been omitted, any information has been modified. Take a look at that. Ask a lot of questions, so FAQs can help improve this whole process. Whether it's to Leslie or to professional concerns, please do submit the feedback. Suggest improvements and alternatives. Share literature about service delivery models that you found useful that might help shape this. And just generally examine the model and share your feedback. So that's really what this is about. Like I said, this isn't really intended to be Q&A, so we're not going to discuss this too much here at the meeting. The whole idea is to establish a feedback loop by which we can kind of improve on this process and maybe set some standards for the future in which feedback can be gathered in this way, maybe formally in this case, because the informal feedback's great, but really we need the formal feedback so that anything can actually happen. Like I said, I don't intend to make this a Q&A about the model itself, but does anyone have any questions about sort of the process of gathering the information? Yes?
What makes feedback formal versus informal?
Well, informal means that you come up to one of us in the hallway and say what you think about the delivery model. Formal means attending a meeting with professional concerns or submitting the feedback in a way that it can be recorded properly. Because at the Ad 15 meetings, of course, all the feedback is recorded and it's curated, put into the report. If you send something in an email, then it's recorded too. If it's just coming up to one of the members of steering or professional concerns in the hallway and expressing a concern or a criticism, we can't do much with it. Yes, Heather?
I think that's a fantastic question, Susan. Thank you for asking that. And I just want to add to what Dave's saying, everything that Dave has said, and also just that if we get it formally, then you know what we're going to do with it. Instead of like having to stop you in the hallway and be like, okay, what can we do with this now? How do you want to proceed with us sharing it? We've set up our group agreements for the Ad 15s, so we are clear on what we're going to do with this information and how we're going to share it. So that's just really hard to do informally. That's one of the other differences. Thanks.
Yes, Ellen?
I just wanted to add, and maybe you can repeat it in the microphone, that at the Ad 15s, or I'll just speak in the microphone.
Thank you. At the Ad 15s, we do strip as much identifying markers from any of the comments as possible, if that's a concern for anyone. So the Ad 15s, another plug, will be starting in about, 4 minutes downstairs in 362, if anyone wants to talk about anything. So we do strip that information so when it goes out reports if that's a concern for anyone. Whereas, if it comes in through the email, obviously we're going to strip the information when we report it out, but we don't track who attends. We track how many people attend Ad 15s, but not who.
Thanks.
I'm going to go out on a limb and ask the really sort of basic question of somebody who was not at the session in April, who doesn't work in public service. So if I understand correctly, you're looking for feedback on not only this whole process, but has the outcome actually been implemented? I mean, is that partially what is being looked for? I mean, just to understand how to approach all of this. Does that make sense or not?
When you say the outcome implemented, do you mean are there instruments required?
Yeah, in terms of what's in the service delivery model, this is the service that we're looking for is also looking at what's actually in place today, working in the libraries versus what was envisioned 2 years ago when this was all sort of maybe again, this is coming from somebody who's not working in public service, who did not.
Does anyone else want to take a stab at answering that question?
I would say it is not in place.
Okay.
I would also say that's a question to go into the Q&A to give feedback. Like that question itself is feedback.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, with that, we'll call the meeting to a close. I would like to say again, we are still looking for one more steering member. So please, I will send out another reminder email with the link to self-nominate, but we'd love it if you would do so. And once again, Ad 15 coming up in just a couple minutes.